So my name's Anna Chapman. I'm Head of Service at London Stadium Learning, and we have a really exciting interview for you today. Introducing Sharon Andrews, who is our VIP, our very special athlete that we're interviewing. And we've got some fantastic interviewers with us today. So would you just like to introduce yourselves very quickly?
And so I'm from Gideon Park College School in Gideon Park.
And I'll go to Brentwood S9 in Brentwood.
And Sarisha?
My name's Sarisha. I'm 11 years old and I go to Ranelagh Primary School.
Jaden?
I'm Jaden Wisdom, and I'm a mentor for London Stadium Learning.
Okay. So those are our young people at the moment, and Taslim, of course, is our mentor as well.
Hi, yeah, I'm Taslim Rabbani, and I'm one of the learning mentors at London Stadium Learning.
And as I said, I'm Pia, and I'm the Centre Manager at London Stadium Learning. And Andy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Andrew, and I'm doing the technical support for this session today.
So fantastic. So thank you very much for joining us today. I'm very, very pleased to introduce you to Sharon Andrews, who competed in discus and shot put all around the world, representing Great Britain in events between the mid-1980s and 1990s. Incredible story. So welcome, Sharon. Really great to have you here with us.
Okay, well, welcome audience, welcome everybody. It's so nice to have a varied audience from primary up to secondary and the learning mentors. I'm actually in education now. I'm actually a teacher now in North London, so it's really nice to have you all on board. So my journey started in secondary school. I had an absolutely wonderful PE teacher called Miss Greener, and I was never ever the best at sport, but I loved sport. So if you can imagine, I'm 15 years old. I was a size, say, like 18, 20 back then, so I was quite a big girl, but I loved every single sport. But my mum was more into academics. There's 7 of us in my family. There's 7 girls. I'm the 6th one of 7 girls. So it was a real, you know, fun family, but very busy. And Mum, she worked as a nurse, and she didn't really have much time for athletics. Her thing was about academics and making sure you push yourself in that way. So I was always middle of the road in terms of athletics. I was never a high flyer, but I always worked hard at school. But where I excelled was in sport. And that's what got me on the road to where I am now. So my PE teacher was really good. I did netball, basketball, you name it, I did every sport, even cross country, but don't ask me about that one. So cross country was never ever my forte. But then she saw something in me, in my athletics, and she took me to Essex Lady in Woodford, if you know that area. So that was my first introduction to athletics. Met my first coach, Norman Painter, a lovely, lovely man. God rest his soul, he's passed away now. But he was my first coach. And I did one summer and it went really well. But what happened, I was still playing netball, hockey, football. I was doing all the team games. And he approached me in the winter of 1986, 1985, around that time. And he approached me and he said, look, you've been ranked in the athletics rankings from what you did last year. And I was like really surprised. I was like, oh, okay. And he said, you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to do athletics or do you want to continue with your sports? So I went home, discussed it with my mum because it was going to cost money to buy discus shoes, to get discuses as well, traveling around the country. It was going to be quite costly. In came my PE teacher again. I had a conversation with her and said, look, I've been ranked. I've got an opportunity to go down this route. And she said, okay, we'll try and help you out. So it was a school that first of all helped me with my transport. They helped me with some clothing. They applied for sponsorship in the borough of Waltham Forest. And I basically started competing from there. I went to the English schools 4 times. I went and represented Waltham Forest Borough. Then I went on to the Essex Championships, and then I went on to south of England. So that was my first beginning. But during that time, competing for Essex Ladies at the same time, we were becoming one of the top clubs in England. So we would travel up and down the country representing the southern England. And then we eventually went on to compete abroad for Essex Ladies. We became the top group, top team then. So it was Essex Ladies versus the rest of the countries abroad. So that was my first international field. That was exciting, absolutely wonderful. But I still had to make a decision what I wanted to do. And then from there, I then went on to become an international athlete. I had my first athletics meet in Cottbus, Germany. Now, back in the day, there was still the Berlin Wall. So I don't know if you all know your history, but the Berlin Wall, you went from East Germany into West Germany. And it was such a difference, a different kind of place that you went to. It was like going from Oxford Circus into hardly anything. You know, there was hardly anything from the other side. It was very grey. But it was a very, very interesting European Juniors. That's what I went to. So it was European Juniors in Cottbus. And that was my first real taste of international competition. And I have to say, and I'll be honest with you, it was a disaster. We went to Germany and we came up against these European athletes. And if you know your history, there was a lot of controversy in terms of drug taking and, you know, a little bit of cheating going on in the sport, which it was an eye opener. So we were competing against athletes, and we basically got punished there. You know, we didn't make the cut of our finals. Field eventers that night, we went to talk to our coach, and we were really demoralized. We were like, what do we need to do to be the best? And he was very, very blunt. He said, you're gonna have to train hard. You're gonna have to train harder than you have before, and you're gonna have to come out of this and really try your hardest. So we got back to England now, and for some of the team, we never saw again because they just felt, can't do this. And for me, it was a change of lifestyle. I parted with my coach, and that was from technical reasons. Not because we fell out or anything like that, but I felt I needed to improve my technique. So I moved to another coach called George Painter, and that was at Newham and Essex Beagles. So that's just down the road from where you are now, the London Stadium. So I trained there for many years, and he got me to my first Commonwealth Games, which was in 1990. And I went to Auckland in New Zealand. That was a big learning curve for me because I got there and it was just enormous. I mean, I was on at the same time Linford Christie was running the 100 meters. So you can imagine this stadium, the 100 meters is on, which is like the biggest race you can have. The stadium is packed, maybe 10,000 or more athletes. I felt like an ant in that stadium. It was so packed. And to be honest with you again, physically, I was in good shape, but mentally, I was nervous as anything. So psychologically, my mind, I was just thinking, oh my goodness, look at the crowd. I couldn't even hear myself breathe because it was all chants of, 100 meters, Linford Christie. You know, there was all this noise, and I was just like, oh, it's amazing. And then I'm thinking, go on, Linford, go on, you know, and I'm thinking, but I'm competing here as well in the discus. So I had to compose myself, get myself ready for my event. I made the final, but I was so overwhelmed with it all. I bombed my next 3 throws and it just didn't work. It was an eye-opener. So it was a good experience. I mean, the best championships that I'd been to at that time, and it was a real learning curve. So I came back from that competition, and what happened then, I had to part from my coach, and that was because of the psychological side of things. Because athletics, and you'll find this out, it's not all about your physique and what you can do. It's got to do with the mental as well. And I needed that mental preparation. So I was seeing a sports psychologist. I was being prepared mentally for my competition, to basically have tunnel vision, not notice anybody else and just concentrate on myself, because that's what I let myself down with at the first Commonwealth Games I went to. So for the next 4 years, I changed coach again, and we had to part. And I changed to Mike Winch, and he was a top athlete as well. He'd gone to international competitions and he knew what to expect. So I then went through the 4 years, training myself up physically. I changed completely. I became a much more dynamic and powerful athlete. So it wasn't all about the weight room. I was running 400 meters. I was running 200 meters, 100 meters, 60 meters to get my dynamics up. And I'm thinking, but I'm a thrower here. Why am I doing these races? But he was all about the balance, strength and dynamics. Absolutely brilliant. And then on top of that, the psychology of it all. So he got me prepared mentally, and it was all about centering your mind and just thinking about yourself. So every competition I went to, basically I never saw anybody else. All I saw was that circle and that field on that day. So went to Canada, qualified for Canada Victoria in 1994, made my Commonwealth Games absolutely brilliant. And when I was there, I prepared properly. He got me prepared in the warm-up area, then into the main arena. Again, we were scheduled with the 100-meter runners. Didn't even notice them this time. I was just focused on my event. I went there, best shape I'd ever been in. And oh, I couldn't believe it. I was in first place at one stage, and I was the first one to throw. Then all the athletes who were ranked above me started to get their game together, but I was still in the third or fourth round. I was still ranked first. Then I went to second, and then it came to the last round, and I was the first one to run out. I was ranked third. So I beat all the British throwers, and I thought, oh, I could get a medal here. I could get a medal here. Last round, first to throw, must have been the second to last thrower, South African, I remember it so well. She threw out of her socks, PB. I ended up in fourth place, and I couldn't believe it. I was just like devastated, but devastated in one way that I didn't get a medal, but happy in another way that I was the top British thrower. I kept myself mentally. I threw 1 meter under my best ever throw, and it was the best result for me, even though I didn't get a medal. It was such a result because of my mind, because of what I'd gone through and everything like that. And you know, just that journey through what I've done. I mean, I've now become a teacher of physical education, but with that journey that I did, it has just opened up so many doors for me in other areas of my life, you know, dealing with interviews, dealing with people, dealing with my children at school and things like that. So I can never ever look back with any regret. The friendships that I've made, the countries that I've traveled to, I didn't ever think I'd travel the whole of Europe, some of America, some of Canada. I didn't ever think I'd see those places. You know, coming from a family what was so big, money was always not very forthcoming. But then what with the sponsorship, what with, you know, people wanting to invest in you, my shoes were paid for, my discuses were eventually paid for me, and I was getting appearance money at some of the meets as well. Oh, you know, the lifestyle was just absolutely brilliant. I cannot tell you how much it's just, you know, uplifted my life, and does so today as well with other things that I'm doing. So yeah, I would never look back and say, oh, it was hard work. Don't get me wrong, it was hard work, but it was worth doing. And there is a little PowerPoint at the end of this that shows you my journey from Essex ladies right to the Commonwealth Games, where I met some of my top athletes. Some of you might know them, they might be doing this, you know, you've got Denise Lewis, you've got Tessa Sanderson, Myrtle Orgy, Donna Fraser. They're all people from that era that are now either commentators or you know, doing things in the world of athletics as well. In the beginning, so that's a photo that was taken by one of the the photographers at one of my meets that I was throwing at. So I've got that at my house, and that's something that I gave to my mum and my family. So that's something I've got there. And then the next slide goes on from there. This is the Essex ladies team that I was talking about. You've got Sally Gunnell in there. You've got Kim Haggard. You've got quite a few athletes that went on to Olympic fame. Sally was my captain at that time, and then I became her captain a few years later. So that was one of our best teams. We went on to win Europe, the GRE as it was called back then, but that was the best team that we had at that time, and we won the European Championships with that team. So it was absolutely a brilliant occasion for us. And then moving on from there, you know, these are some of my field events, as you can see me being silly there, but we actually carried the flag as such for Essex ladies at the actual event. So that was us just messing around. The next one from there, yeah, these are just, this is the Essex Championships at Basildon. I threw 3 PBs that day, 3 personal bests that day. I don't know what happened. I think I was just in really good form, and I had a throw of like 53 meters, then I went to 54, came back down to 50. I think I ended up with 54.50 on that day, and the officials just kept having to go out with the tape and keep remeasuring just to say, yes, that is a record. So the Essex record was broken 3 times on that day. It was a brilliant day, actually. So those are those pictures that were taken from there in the shot put. I mean, I did do shot put as well, but most of my internationals were for discus. My shot put was like a second event, but I threw 15.80, just short of 16 meters with that.
So yeah, we'll come back to Jason's question, but we've got Tahilia and Kyra. How did you motivate yourself when you wanted to give up?
Oh, you just thought about the next event. I mean, you know, sometimes you came home and you felt, you know, I really don't want to do this anymore. But the elation, the experience that you have from winning or just striving to be better than you were before, that's what motivates you, because you know you still got some drive in you, you know you still got things that you want to do. And when you've got people around you, they help you as well to drive you on. That's why the next slides that you'll see, you'll see how our family starts to evolve. This is when I went to Cottbus. I was about 18, 19 then, and that was my first international. So that was my pride and joy of my athletics kit. So that's where I started. So from 18 to the age of 32, I was an international athlete. I think nearly every year I got an international vest. I don't think there was any year after that I didn't. Yeah, so it was a very good career, hard career, but very good. And then from there, yeah, don't even ask me about the outfits. That's what we wore back then. You know, training, you know, we trained nearly every day. But, you know, when you get these kind of uniforms, I mean, as you move forward, you'll see the uniforms that we ended up for the Commonwealth Games and things like that. So the next slide.
So we had a question about how important is nutrition for athletes?
Oh, well, I'll tell you that one year we always have a goal weight. Well, I had to anyway. And I always threw around 14 stone to 14 and a half. And I will tell you for nothing, if you come out of those weights, you do notice it, you do feel it. So from when I finished the first Commonwealth Games, because there was so much food, when I say we were in Auckland and the food was just amazing. We had like a canteen that you could go in there 24/7 or 24 hours it was, and you could pick from muffins to casseroles. Oh, there was everything. Ice cream, you name it, there was everything. And to my detriment, I got a bit I wouldn't say greedy, but I ate, and it wasn't very good. Wasn't very good. But the next championships, like I said, nutrition was key, and everything was calorific. Everything you had a calorie count for, and I stayed within my calorie count, and I stayed within my body weight, and it made such a difference. But it's all about learning. It's all about learning about your body, what it can do and what it can't do. And I'm still like that to this day. I know if my body is getting out of shape. I know if I'm feeling bloated. I know if I'm not in top shape and things like that, because you just know your body so well. Yeah. So this slide is just a collage of all the people that I've met over the years and how they've influenced me and what support they gave me. You've got to have a good support network, a positive support network. If you've got anybody who's like, oh, you can't do this or give up, they've got to come out of your circle, because you've got to have people that are going to push you, motivate you, and say, look, you've had a bad day, but you'll have a better day. And those are the people you want around you. And then my last slide, I think it is coming up now. Oh, these are my medals. I mean, these are just some of the biggest achievements that I've got. But I've got like medals from school. I've got medals from my county championships. I've got medals from my borough championships. But these, for me, were my significant medals. There's medals that I got for the Commonwealth Games. You can see a flower one there. I've got one for my GRE championships, that's there. And then just individual record breaking medals and things like that. So these are just some of them that I've put on display for you today. And then moving forward from there, this was our team. You know, these girls, we were like a family. And there's throwers, there's runners in there. You might recognize some of them. But we are still friends to this day, and Anna's in contact with some of them. And the journey that we went on together, they were at the 2 Commonwealth Games with me, one in Auckland and then again in Canada. And throughout the 4 years that you have between the events, the championships, we all stayed together and we all said, look, we've got to make the next one. And we did. And for me, looking back at this picture, it's just, we're family, and we still are family to this day. So but the uniform, please don't look at the uniform. That's what we had to wear for our marching out on the ceremony and everything. That was when we actually got ready for the march out of the arena on the opening day. Yeah, it brings back fond memories. So just a few video pictures that I wanted to share with you of my journey. I hope that's giving you a bit of more insight into my career.
Can I just ask you a question, Sharon, about that in relation to that last picture? Because I've over the years when I watch athletics, I see that different kits come out, different designs.
Yeah.
We've obviously got someone designing the kits, and I'm just curious because you spanned, 10 years worth of history in terms of, and I'm just interested in terms of the kit and, obviously the techniques of producing material that might be more advantageous for sport. I just wonder if there's anything that you can add to that.
Yeah, I mean, over the years the kit became more streamlined. It was a lot more body hugging, because wind resistance, things like that. And I'm sure the learning mentors that are here and the athletes that are here, when you're running, you want the least bit of resistance as possible. Same with when you're throwing. So the shorts and the t-shirts and things like that, they sort of like that was just for your warm-up. But to have the leotard and the leggings, which was much more skin tight, it was about wind resistance and keeping it down as much as possible. So yes, the uniforms did change over the years a lot. Sometimes they didn't always give you the best shape you wanted, in terms of your figure, but in terms of technique and what you wanted to achieve, they were the best things to wear. And then Adidas were a big influence. That uniform that we had there for the Commonwealth Games, that was done by Next. So, you know, there was a lot of people that came on board in terms of putting our uniforms together for us. The runners usually had, excuse me, a different look, and so did the field eventers as well. So it was always, you know, we always tried to look the same, but there was different uniforms for different events, and that's how it went.
And do you think, like you're saying, you know, different kits for different events, do you think, looking back, there was much difference between the men and the women, and how they might have been portrayed through clothing?
Yeah, well, definitely, you know, I mean, you know, it was like the skimpier the outfit, the more you would get. And I think that was more like to look in television as well. You know, you wanted to attract an audience, rightly or wrongly. How you looked was something that attracted the audience. So you know, I remember one of my sponsors saying, you know, you've got to look a certain way because we need you to be seen. So obviously, you know, you had to wear a little bit more makeup, you wore your hair a different way, you tried to be as attractive in your uniform as possible, as well as keeping your physique for your training, you know, for your throwing. So it was trying to get a mixture of the two, looking good and attracting people into the sport that you wanted to, and not looking, for want of a better word, not too muscular and not too unfeminine. And that's what was hard with the field eventers, because we were very muscular, we were strong and powerful athletes, but we tried to maintain an attractiveness for youngsters coming in, for people that we wanted to come into the sport. But yes, so it was difficult sometimes, because we were the powerhouses, as they used to call us back then, you know. I mean, even some of the men were afraid of the girls because we were so strong, you know. Some of the runners,
sure.
they used to, yeah, oh, we won't mess with the throwers, you know, they're too strong for us, sort of thing. But it was lovely. It was good camaraderie in there. But yeah, the clothing was a big thing then. Yeah.
So Jaden put up a question right at the beginning, which is very important, I think. Fantastic question. What things did you have to sacrifice to be able to go to the games and compete at the games?
Well, I mean, Jaden, there was no social life as such. My social life was athletics. You know, because like when I came home in the evening, I was so tired from training. So I'll tell you a little bit about my training day. So my training was Monday to Friday. So I trained every day, but it was like Monday, Wednesday, Friday was weights, and it got lighter as the week went on. So you had a heavy session on a Monday, medium session Wednesday, Friday was a light session just to get you ready for your competition on Saturday. Tuesday and Thursday was technical work, speed work, ball work, body conditioning work. Saturday, you had competition. Sunday was a review of what you'd done on the Saturday. So you'd look through your videos. When videos started to come in, you were videoed, you were looked at, where did this go right, where did this go wrong? That was the first thing. And then from the video, and you would then be back into training to rectify what you'd done from the previous competition. And that's how your routine was. So I would be finishing my either school at the time, going to training, then it was university, going to training. I'd get home sometimes 10 o'clock at night, because I was traveling from Leighton, where I used to live, to Crystal Palace, because you go to the good facilities basically. So for some of you who don't know the journey, it was 2 trains and a bus, and that took about an hour and a half to get to Crystal Palace. So that was usually the journey until I started driving. Then it was about an hour. So you drive there, you were so tired coming home, you had to be careful because you wanted to just sleep. So you'd have something to eat, maybe about 9:30, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in bed, up again the next day to do your uni or college or school. And then that was a routine. So you didn't have time for a social life. I had friends, but they understood that athletics was my life at that time. And because I was always in the newspapers, I was in our local paper, you know, friends realized, ooh, she's quite serious about this. And so I've maintained some friends from school, but my main social life was my athletics, and that was my athletics life, really, and that was it. So yeah, a lot of things had to go on hold. I mean, I've only just started to, when I finished at 32, I then started to have relationships. Before that, I didn't have time, and I only got married in 2016. You know, after many years of being an independent woman, doing my career and everything, you know, I found a wonderful husband and wonderful man actually to take me on board. And yeah, and I've been married now since 2016. So I mean, it's been difficult because all those years I was on my own, doing my own thing. Never ever thought I'd get married. You know, and that was it really. Yeah. And sometimes I look back and I think maybe I could have done better at school. But then, you know, I still went on to get my degree, and I still went on to become a PE teacher. So there are going to be times when people will pull you in one direction, and you've got to be strong-minded and say, no, I want to do this. You know, the learning mentors that are out there, you're going to have so many different things to deal with in terms of peer pressure that students are going to come up against. You're going to have family, because I know my mum was like, what are you doing discus and shop for? That's not going to get you anywhere. You need to get to your books and get your education. And you know, and I said, but mum, I really like what I'm doing. No, you've got to do your education first. And big arguments about that. Please, can I do that? So there's always that controversy in the house, or that argument. I mean, I was very lucky I had sisters to back me up. So, and then when my mum saw I was doing well, she was a little bit more, you know, okay, I'm in the newspaper, I'm doing all right. She saw me on TV, so she thought, okay. But yeah, there's a lot of that you got to contend with. You know, social media is a big thing now. You know, how you're seen on social media. You're always training, you know, you're not around for your friends. They can sometimes have an influence as well. So yeah.
So Sarisha's got a great question about what got you into athletics in the first place. And I know you covered a bit of that in regards to a very supportive teacher at school. But I'm just interested if you were inspired by anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big person. I've always been big. Our whole family come from big. My dad was 6'2". My mum, she was 5'8". You know, we were always like a size 16 upwards. No one was ever small in our family. So yeah, it was just making sure. My teacher just said, look, you've got talent, use it. And you know, she was just a really encouraging woman. Miss Greener, I wish I know where she is to this day, because she was just a very motivating, encouraging person in my life, you know. And she spoke to my mum as well and said, look, you know, she'll be fine, we'll look after her, we'll make sure she gets her education, but you know, she's got talent, let's use it. And I think if you've got a PE teacher that can support you that way, encourage you that way, go for it, really and truly. It's
so
such
I think that answers Tahilia's and Kyra's question about what you might say to other budding athletes, those young people that want to work towards it.
Yeah.
A question from Taslim, which I think is a really clever one as well, is if you could improve one thing to better yourself, what would that be?
Mental. Yeah, because if you haven't got the mental strength, you can have the physical strength, that's fine, and you can train that. But if you haven't got that mental strength to say, you're having a bad day, but I'm really going to keep going, that's what you need. Because so many things can influence you, and it's that mindset at the end of the day that's going to get you going. more than anything else, because I've seen so many people with physical attributes and you just think, gee, that person could be really good. And then a few years down the line, you say, well, where's that person now? And they've either gone off into a different field, they've had a few bad years where they haven't won a meet, or they've got injured and they've just thought, no, this is too hard for me. And we've lost them. So I would say a strong mindset more than anything else. Yeah. I'm really sorry, people who have come to watch this, but my mum is in lockdown at the moment, and she's got a lot of my memorabilia in her house. And because of COVID, I haven't been able to go and see her. So where I've got trophies, I mean, my sister managed to get the medals for me and do that, but I've got like uniforms and no, I don't even know if you want to see the uniforms, but you know, there's things that would have been nice to have shown, but I really apologize that I couldn't go to the house to get them.
That's absolutely fine. We will share them on the website with your permission. We'd love to share them because, again, it's a fantastic resource. So if there was one particular piece of memorabilia artifact that really meant a lot to you, it didn't have to be a medal. If there was one thing in particular that you really hold dear, what would it be?
It was a photograph, actually, of me in the newspaper. And it was just sort of like giving a little bit of history of what I'd done and what I'd achieved. And I've still got that. So that was something that really touched me, because you finish athletics, and I finished in about 2000 I finished. And it's sort of like that memory's gone. You know, your athletics is finished, you've moved on to other things. And it's only when some of the students say, oh, Miss, I saw you on YouTube. I said, you what? And they're like, Miss, I looked you up. I saw you on YouTube. And I'm like, oh, I forgot all about it. And doing this today for me has brought back so many memories and so many things that, for me, I think was years ago. But talking about it now, I just think, gee, that was a big part of my life. That was a big part of who I was and who I am today. So I think for me, it's having that newspaper clipping, just really highlighting some of my achievements. And yeah, and I've still got that to this day. So that's something I'll always hold on to. And then some of my uniforms, and some of my uniforms from the Commonwealth. Yeah, even though they were horrible.
Which games was your favourite? Which uniforms, games, experiences do you think were your favourites?
Victoria, the one that I put up last. Yeah, that slide that I put up last, Victoria, because I think because I came back from Auckland so defeated, and to think about what I wanted to do for the 4 years. I mean, 4 years is a long time, you know, and you think, God, can I do this? Am I gonna make this? And to actually get there 4 years later and get nearly on the rostrum, I think that was one of my greatest achievements, you know. But because I started teaching, and I just couldn't mix the two, teaching physical education and training at the same time, I couldn't mix the two. I was too tired, and my training started to go down, and my work picked up, but my training, it was too hard to do. So I'd say, you know what, I'm happy. I finished on a high. Let me impart that knowledge now to my students. And you know what I've done with my PE team, we've got students to English schools. Some of them are now jumpers. Some of them have gone on to be internationals. And for me, I feel that I'm doing something in a different way now. I'm hopefully imparting my knowledge to other children so that they can go on to be great athletes, which is what my PE teacher did for me. So I think it's just gone full circle, really.
Brilliant.
You know, what she did for me, I'm trying to impart on the next generation.
Well, our project's called Passing the Flame, and we're looking at these, you know, journeys through time and sharing of knowledge, expertise, experience. So I'm sure what you said today has been a tremendous inspiration. I'm sure you're very inspiring for the young people that you teach directly, but it's wonderful that you could share your knowledge, experiences today. And yes, I'm sure we'll be looking you up, Sharon. It won't end there. The stories, we will uncover them and find out what it was all about, and I'm sure it will spark off conversations about diets and clothing and all the things that have changed since the 1980s, which is quite a long time ago now.
It was, yeah. But I think that was such a
way beyond some of our interviewers today.